Gloucester, first and foremost, has always been a city of pride, tradition, and industry. The strong immigrant roots support a centuries-old community whose livelihood depended on the ocean, whose lives revolved around Gloucester Harbour. Gloucester remained isolated from outside influence for years, watching as the rest of the world developed around it. However, as the times change, Gloucester is slowly but surely following suit. The decline of the fishing industry in Gloucester due to overfishing and competition has led to a necessary shift in Gloucester's foundation. This has resulted in an increase in tourism and residential ownership, increasing shorefront development to appease the wishes of vacationers and property owners. The oldest working seaport in America is moving into the 21st century. Development has both benefits and drawbacks. While Gloucester has survived through tradition for longer than America has been founded, change gives us an opportunity to move into the future, as we have been stuck in the past. The community of Gloucester is very much divided by the pressing debate on whether development will improve this city and its people, or if development will damage the communities and traditions that make Gloucester as unique as it is. For a long time, Gloucester has been faced with the threat of gentrification. Damon Cummings, a longtime Gloucester resident and retired MIT associate professor, explains from his perspective the consequences of urban renewal, a government plan in the 1960s to revitalize cities by attracting wealthier residents. This attempt resulted in the gentrification and permanent restructuring of parts of Gloucester.
It affected the core of Gloucester tremendously. It was so different down here that I couldn't even find things that I grew up with. So in that sense, it was very definitely different.
There is a clash between the supporters and opposers of development throughout the city, but many do not stop to think about the progress and changes already made in Gloucester during its almost 400-year history. Nothing remains the same forever, and there is a necessity to moving towards the future. Gloucester Land Use Attorney Joel Favazza discusses the necessary balance between the old and the new, explaining the centuries of opposition to projects aimed to push Gloucester forward.
Well, I think, and I've been guilty of this myself, people quickly lose perspective. And just because something has been the same way as long as you can remember it, doesn't mean it's always been that way, and doesn't mean even if it has, it should always be that way. Gloucester's 400 years old, and what the harbor looks like now is very different than what the harbor looked like 50 years ago. It's very different from what the harbor looked like 100 years ago, and so on. One of my favorite anecdotes is when the current city hall was being built, you can go find old newspaper clippings from that time in the city archives, and the citizens were outraged because it was too tall and it was too gaudy and it was going to destroy the skyline as viewed from the harbor. And now it's this iconic thing that we love and that we spend millions of dollars to preserve as a community. And when the wind turbines were going up, this generation of naysayers came out and complained about how the windmills were going to destroy the skyline as viewed from the harbor and overshadow the beautiful city hall that you can see from, out in the harbor. And I thought it was really funny that this thing that was the eyesore is now the thing to protect. And so, that flows forward as far as changes to the seafront.
Some residents see development as a necessary step for Gloucester's future, but that it should be approached with care. Development, housing in particular, will provide Gloucester with necessary space as the population ages, shifting from families with children to elderly residents retiring. Gloucester also faces a lack of affordable housing, and this can be alleviated by more housing projects. This increase in housing and shift in population, however, has the ability to change Gloucester's dynamic and communities. Sean Henry, a member of Gloucester's Planning Board, explains the caution that must be taken while implementing this necessary development.
Well, I think when you take the Expresso's site, for example, I think that is very much representative of sort of this point we're at, where finding a balance between creating new housing, which we need, while at the same time not overburdening the neighborhoods and the city infrastructure, where the streets sewer system, that sort of thing, with additional development. But again, taking that example, if you look at the housing production plan that the city adopted earlier this year, the city is going to need a little over 600 new houses, new dwelling units in the coming years. Using Espressos as an example, you have neighborhood concerns about creating too much housing, overburdening the neighborhood with too many new units. While the flip side of that is if you force that development to drop down in scale too small, below 8 units, which is what our threshold is to provide affordable housing units along with the development, we would lose those affordable units. So it's a balancing act for that.
As Gloucester develops and becomes a place for summer homes and retirees, current and future residents face the growing reality of being priced out of the market. Increased residential development, especially on seafront property, leads to an increase in housing prices. This issue may result in middle and lower income families being priced out of family neighborhoods, further changing Gloucester, taking away the tight-knit communities felt today. Gloucester attorney Sal Frontiero, who comes from a long line of fishermen, is currently representing the Espresso's condo proposal. He believes in varied development without rampant housing. Similarly, Damon Cummings, a consistent opposer to much of the development currently taking place in Gloucester, offers a similar opinion from a different perspective.
I think you got to be careful to not make it look too institutionalized with just large apartment complexes everywhere. It's nice to have a sort of eclectic mix of housing. And also, we run the risk in Gloucester of people being priced out. That's a problem. I don't know how a kid today affords to buy a house in Gloucester. And that can be said for Massachusetts in general. We could get into a broader discussion about, the wealth gap and everything else. And I think that you see that at the local level. I mean, I honestly, looking at rents, I don't know how some people are doing it. I really don't. So I do think we have to be careful, again, to strike that balance, that this does not become a community where you have to be affluent to live here. Fortunately, one of the good things about Gloucester is that we have a nice mix of, a multifamily neighborhood next to a very different neighborhood. It's a very, very odd mix in the way it's constituted. We don't just have the rich part of town and the not so rich part of town. It's mixed together, which I think is a benefit. I think that's a good thing. But we do run that risk of people being completely priced out. So.
All residential use.
And of the harbor.
I'm very worried about it
Yep.
because a lot of the houses that are being built are too expensive for people who work here, which means that the families have to leave. I've been through that. I lived in Wellesley.
Development such as the new Beauport Hotel and Espresso's condo project has both major supporters and critics debating its necessity and location. The hotel was built in the location of the old Clarence Birdseye Industrial Building, a former Gloucester historical building left abandoned. Some Gloucester residents went up in arms about these developments, others accepting their necessities to Gloucester's tourist economy. The recent condo proposal in a lot in East Gloucester, formerly home to the restaurant Espresso's, has community members aggressively fighting against its implementation, claiming it is too large and too out of character for the unique East Gloucester neighborhood. Local artist Brenda Malloy came to Gloucester to make art and owns a gallery on Rocky Neck Art Colony. She holds an aggressive stance against these large developments in Gloucester, including the Beauport Hotel.
Oh, I absolutely fucking loathed it. I thought it was disgusting. I think that it bummed me out big time. I have to say, now that I've gone there I think I've had a couple of meals there. It's a beautiful view. It's a wonderful experience to sit on the harbor. You could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't really say Gloucester to me except for the view. I think it fills a need, but it still kind of bums me out. It's like we're going for yuppification. Like we used to be kind of Gloucester grunge, and now we're going upscale. Now there aren't only $2 and $3 million homes on the market, but now we've got several $100 a night hotel rooms, and it's just kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
In a way.
So what do you think of other similar buildings like that? And there's talk about the the housing on down by East Gloucester, or about
By Espresso?
yeah.
Oh, I was the first one to stand up at the meeting saying, don't build that motherfucking thing. 10 units, 4 stories high. How much money do people need to make? My God. Like, people are feeling unfulfilled, and this is their way of boosting their ego. Because if you're feeling good, you don't need to, like, trash the world and build a mausoleum for yourself. To yourself. To your ego. You know, I've got more than you do. I think it's inappropriate. I think it's poor human behavior, and I hope humans figure it out before whatever.
Although there seems to be an obvious downside to the increase in housing costs throughout communities, there is also a less considered benefit. The increased development of expensive houses and other commercial property results in an increase in tax revenue for the city of Gloucester. This increase in tax revenue allows for an increase in the city's available revenue for infrastructure, public projects, and general city services. Joey Shimataro, a co-owner of local business Captain Joe's Lobsters, supports the development of Gloucester, which he believes will benefit the city as a whole.
People love Gloucester because there's so much here. I don't know that it's going to change by any type of zoning is going to change gentrification because there's so much land in Gloucester and places that people are going to, if they want to come here, they're going to come here. I think that increased property values help to pay for city services. I think that things like the hotel where you had an abandoned warehouse that wasn't being used, that was probably assessed at $500,000 that now has a value of, I'm guessing, and say $40 million and generates meals tax, rooms tax, and instead of taxes on $500,000, taxes on $40 million. I'm guessing that those type of things help to pay for better schools, better paved roads, maybe to keep our fire stations open. If we don't have those type of developments and investment, then all of that burden goes on the homeowners and the taxes, for taxes to go up. So I prefer to have people investing in our city so that we can in turn have schools built, teachers paid well, policemen paid well, fire stations open. So that's my view on that.
Even as development seems to be on the rise, there are still many restrictions in place to protect the history and seafront industry that has shaped this city. Designated Port Area Protections, or DPA, have been put in place in order to protect industry, only allowing development on seafront property when the bottom floor is designated to water-reliant industry. Developers need to obtain specific licenses that allow them to build their projects following specific guidelines. Recently, much of East Gloucester's waterfront property was removed from DPA protection and is faced with more open development. However, it is still restricted by local zoning ordinances.
So it's one hurdle out of the way. Others will tell you it's one protection from gentrification out of the way, to be fair. The issue over in East Gloucester is that even with the properties removed from the DPA, meaning you no longer have to have water-dependent industrial use on the ground floor, you still run into the same hurdles that it's marine industrial land, and that anything you want to do out there, because they're all waterfront and they're all out on piers, still requires a Chapter 91 license from the state. It's not a free-for-all, but it's definitely a step in the right direction to making development a little more possible out there. And again, it turns back to the need for the city to articulate a plan. The city has taken no steps since the state lifted the DPA over there to actually move development forward over in East Gloucester. So it's, the ball's in our court at this point, and if we don't pick it up, it's not going to go anywhere.
Some Gloucester residents, displeased with some attempts at waterfront development and gentrification, have taken it upon themselves to protect their home. Save Our Shores Gloucester is an organization created to block the development of a plot of land on the ocean side of the iconic Gloucester backshore. The addition to this house would disrupt the picturesque view people have come from around the world to see. As well as an eyesore, this house and land would have been at risk for major damages due to the unstable weather during the spring hurricane season. Martin Del Vecchio, a member of Save Our Shores Gloucester, explains the goal of their organization, and though a strong adversary of backshore waterfront development, is inclined to support harbor development for commercial use.
So I will say that Save Our Shores Gloucester is an ongoing effort to save the undeveloped land along the coastline, including most of the land on the back shore here. But the organization doesn't say that none of the coastline should ever be developed. So a lot of the harbor has already been developed. It's been commercial property for a long time. And the issue for the city now is, should some of that be converted to residential property? And that's a separate issue that we don't have an absolutist view on. Now, we have an absolutist view on the back shore out here. No one should ever build a house on the ocean side of Atlantic Road. So we're fighting for that.
Not everyone views potential development as fundamentally restructuring Gloucester's identity. For hundreds of years, Gloucester has gone through numerous evolutions while maintaining its fundamental character.
I think is the key fact in that Gloucester, as long as we move forward intelligently and plan for our growth in the future, that Gloucester is not likely to suffer a loss in its cultural identity, and we'll be looking back in 20 years wondering why we had fears of whatever's going to be proposed next year.
Gloucester is a unique community filled with a large variety of people, all with varying wants and needs. Gloucester's government has historically faced the issue of development with some amount of hesitation, attempting to please everyone and in turn not making much progress. However, under Mayor Safathia Romeo-Taken, development is being approached differently. Tourism is one of Gloucester's primary industries, and Mayor Romeo-Taken is embracing this fact, wholeheartedly believing that Gloucester's culture can coexist and thrive with new tourist accommodations. Despite opposition from neighbors, she supported the development of the hotel and also maintains a determined commitment to transforming the currently vacant city property known as I-4C2. The mayor believes that this land has potential to benefit Gloucester if utilized correctly, and is waiting for the perfect opportunity to arise. She believes that the future of Gloucester lies in appropriate development that will allow the strong culture to survive, while also allowing for Gloucester to grow with the times.
When you're thinking of the industry, you also have to think of how it started. It wasn't, it was all immigrants. The old fort used to be actually in Lanesville. Lanesville used to own Rockport, Pigeon Cove. So when I talk about Gloucester, I talk about Cape Ann is because it's all of us. It's an island, actually. And you have the Newfoundland, the Nova Scotians. When, the Portuguese and the Italian came, they started down the fort, each section, but it all added in. I, as your mayor, I have 5 wards, 10 precincts, and I want it all to be together. And you can't forget the heritage of why we're here. And we also need to sustain that. And we also need to sustain it, and I know it's not included, but you also need affordable housing. Okay? I know it's not a topic for everyone else and has nothing to do with the industry. They think, yes, it does. You have artists that come from all over the world to paint our beautiful ocean. If they can't, and some of them choose to stay here, and if they can't afford to live here, where are our artists going? Where's our culture? Where's our heritage? How can you sell Gloucester? Even if we still have an industry, you still need the tourism. You still need your artists. You still need the culture, the folklore. You still need it all. And it has to be combined together. So when I was talking to fishermen, I've always talked to them, and I says, one question about the hotel, I heard that you don't want it there, it's going to hurt you and stuff. And he goes, when's the last time you saw a boat fish off of Pavilion Beach? Why do they keep doing that? If all the people who didn't want something come to one meeting, we would have 700 vessels still. Why do they use the fishermen when it's for their advantage? But they never came to one meeting to see how we survive, or never come to fight for our rights. But only when they want to obstruct something from happening do they use the fishermen. Fishermen and tourism have coexisted for years. You get an old Italian fisherman mending a net and put him in front of a camera, he's gonna tell you his whole life like I am. We never shut up because we're so proud of our heritage and our culture and our city. We want everyone to know. So many times, and that's what, you know what? When they said that hotel, if you look out the hotel, now everyone, I go in the hotel, I go to stage 4, I never go to the beaches because I go to talk to our tourism. You know what they say? The best part of the hotel, they don't like the Pavilion Beach part. They like the industry part. They love it. They love actually seeing boats that walk around and the Gigaloni brothers, when they unload, they've eaten. They said, I actually was at that restaurant. I said, the Gloucester House? They go, yes. I looked out the window and saw all this fish coming out. We couldn't hurry up to go look, and they let us look, and we touched the fish, and it's amazing. That's what people want, because don't forget, if you're in Mississippi, you have no idea what we are. Just like if I put you in a potato farm in Idaho, you're not gonna, oh wow, I'm gonna think it's great. Wow, look what I'm doing. It's the same thing when they come here. But we gotta work together because it can exist and it will coexist. But we need the right people. So I'm looking for you to tell me and all of your students at the high school, like I always go, is like, what can we do? What do you see that's missing? What do you want here? How can I make you stay here? Why can't you stay here? Why are people not able to stay here? Affordable housing, is it jobs, all of them, all combination. Then let's make it happen.